All right, now joining me to talk about the Egg Bowl and really about whatever I guess we feel about talking about. My friend Skylar Lara from Skylar Lara Podcast. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Hey Nick, how are you? I appreciate you having me on.
Oh yeah, man, doing great. Glad to have you on here. It's been a while since we spoke. We actually used to go to high school together many years ago now, but I've seen some of your clips on YouTube, and we both thought it'd be kind of great to get you on here talk a little football.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on there. Yeah, we used to play a little ball together back at Old Sumner Christian. Had you there at the defensive end position and me at the quarterback position there. A lot of good memories there at Sumner Christian.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Speaking of something, Christian, I've seen some of your interviews. Like I said, you've talked to Lance Blair, baseball coach there, and Matt Yarbrough, basketball coach, who I both work with. And you've done some other big interviews too. You got Christian Jones, 2013 SEC Special Teams Player of the Year during his tenure at Alabama. You had Trevor Relaford, played basketball at Bama a bit professionally. You got some really good interviews. Tell us where people can find your show and where they can listen or tune in.
Yeah, it's really fun. So, like you mentioned, it's the Skylar Lara podcast. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've started out, I've gotten some local guys like Lance Blair, Coach Bill Griffin, Matt Yarbrough, had a lot of Alabama guys, Trevor Relaford, Ross Pierce Baker, Elijah Crockett, who's on the team currently. And it's just really fun. It's growing, and it's really fun to just kind of have people on there to be able to tell their story and just have an interesting conversation, regardless if they're football or basketball or baseball. So, it's been a lot of fun, and I hope to keep it going and hope it grows even bigger. And like I said, I appreciate you having me on here.
Oh yeah, and yeah, it's I like how all of yours are kind of it's much more like a conversation. Your episodes, they're very uh you obviously put some time and thought into your questions. It's not just like we talked about, not just cookie cutter questions like you had said. It's before the show. It's you kind of put some thought into it, and it's always very entertaining. Definitely check it out. I'll link that below as well if you're listening on the podcast app. But if not, Scholar Lara Podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, and you said Spotify. Is that right?
Yeah. Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Okay, well, good deal. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the Egg Bowl. There's a lot of outside noise in the lead up to this game. There was several reports, of course, that Ole Miss coach Lane Kiffin will be leaving to replace Brian Harsin as the head coach at Auburn. He met with players privately, denied those reports, but we all know, as well as those players do, that a coach's word isn't worth a ton when there's millions of dollars on the line. Um, do you think that maybe that factored into, the eventual, what was it, 24-22 Ole Miss loss we got on Thanksgiving?
It definitely could. It definitely could. But Nick, I don't think he should leave Ole Miss. I really don't. I think he's got a good thing going at Ole Miss. They had a really good start. They started out 7-0, and then for whatever reason lost a lot of steam this last kind of fourth quarter, if you will, of the season. But I think at this point in Lane's career, I think it would be pretty wise for him to maybe build some stability because he's had a reputation of being able to, just move and go from team to team. And I think, honestly, I think Auburn is a team where they have a lot of influence coming from their boosters and things of that nature. And they're kind of looking for a yes man, in my personal opinion. And I don't think that's Lane Kiffin and another guy that's been brought up, Deion Sanders from Jackson State. I think both of those coaches are amazing coaches, amazing recruiters, but I just don't honestly feel like Lane Kiffin could be that match for Auburn. I actually made a podcast clip about Deion Sanders going to Auburn. That possibly could work out a little bit more because I feel like maybe Deion Sanders is in a little bit more of a different position where he needs to possibly kind of, I mean, if you want to call it buying out, that's fine, but kind of just progressing into a Power Five school because he's came out in interviews and said that he's interested and he would definitely entertain those offers. So, we'll see. But I know a lot of Auburn people they've been pleased with Cadillac. They've feel comfortable with him. He's already been on the staff. He's an Auburn guy, so it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens. And honestly, I thought they would have made a decision by now, but the fact that they haven't just kind of adds to the suspense.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't know how Lane Kiffin would clash with those boosters. He's very much is opinionated, I guess. He's usually not too shy of sharing his opinions. I don't know how the boosters would like that. That being said, they're absolutely going after him. They will try to hire him. I guess it comes down to what matters more to Lane Kiffin, being comfortable or having a lot more money. Of course, at Ole Miss, Mississippi State laws, you can only have 4-year contracts for government employees. That's going to factor into the amount that they can be paid. He went to Auburn and signed a 7-year deal. That's a lot more money. But you can go 8-4 at Ole Miss every year and keep your job. Probably not the case at Auburn. So I guess it just depends on if you value that comfort or if you want to progress, maybe compete for a national championship. But like you said, they were ranked number 7 at one point. The wheels kind of fell off there the later half of the season. But yeah, and I think Deion Sanders, obviously, that's a great second choice. Amazing recruiter.
To be honest with you, I'm kind of for Nick. I mean, Lane Kiffin coming to Alabama possibly after Saban retires, either him or Dabo. Those would be my two top candidates for Alabama.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of people feel that same way. I know that's all over Twitter. People are saying don't go to Auburn. You can take the Alabama job eventually, Kiffin. But um, yeah, and that's pretty good gig too. I guess it depends. I guess that's more of a possibility, whereas Auburn would be more of a certainty if you wanted it. Um, But yeah, I don't know. It's as far as Cadillac goes, he does have a lot of love. I think if he were to pull off the Iron Bowl, which we're recording this before the game, if he was to win that game somehow, maybe there's a little bit more buzz. But I think the inexperience is going to maybe scare those boosters off from promoting him. Definitely need to try to keep him on the staff, if nothing else.
I
Um,
think a win today for the Auburn Tigers in an Iron Bowl would not only help Cadillac, but I think honestly it would just kind of make the Auburn job look a lot more appealing to other candidates. You know, like, oh, they just beat Alabama. You know, they must have something going on. They must have some pieces on that roster that I can work with.
yeah, that's a very good point. And it's true. Even though there has been like a mass exodus of players, there's still a lot of talent on that Auburn team. There's still Power 5 SEC West team. They're gonna have some skill there, so they just need somebody to pull them all together, it seems like. But let's talk a little bit about the actual Egg Bowl. If nothing else, this game was it was entertaining. It always is, I guess, when you have personalities like Lane Kiffin, Mike Leach going head to head, but this one actually came down to a failed two-point conversion to tie the game, which it's always either, I guess, exciting or heartbreaking, depending on the side you're on. Um, but I thought just a really fun game. Both quarterbacks came out pretty consistent. Will Rogers, maybe not as great a game as Dart did, but still, Rogers able to pull out the win there. Um, what did you think of this game?
Yeah, absolutely. This was definitely an exciting Egg Bowl for sure. Really came down to the wire. The 121-year-old rivalry. It was played in Oxford, Mississippi at Vaught Hemingway Stadium with the Mississippi State Bulldogs, like you said, getting the win, the 24-22 win on Thanksgiving night. I thought Ole Miss's offense was a little stagnant in the first half. They couldn't execute in the red zone, and it just kind of turned into field goal after field goal. I don't think they actually scored a touchdown until about 2 minutes or so left in the first half. But I was really impressed with Ole Miss's pass rush. They were able to get back to Rogers pretty much all night, causing 3 turnovers on the night. But like I said, they were getting back there, making him uncomfortable. And as the defensive coordinator, that's all you can ask for from your D line. And it was pretty neck and neck for the whole game. Just the eye view, watching it on TV, as well as by the stat book. Mississippi State had 20 first downs. Ole Miss had 19. The total yards by each team was nearly identical. Mississippi State just had one more than Ole Miss with 336 total yards of offense. And like you said, Rodgers didn't have his best game, but I've been really impressed with him all year. He's such a great leader. He's such, a competitor, and he actually passed Dak's all-time passing touchdowns at Mississippi State earlier this year. And I was actually in talk with Mike Leach about having him on my podcast. So I was pulling for the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and I'm glad they pulled it out. I've always liked watching Mike Leach's teams because it's going to be um, heavy on the passing. And as a former quarterback, that's always fun to watch. And he's the inventor of the air raid offense, and that's trickled down into Josh Heupel's offense because Mike Leach coached Josh Heupel at Oklahoma. So it's kind of fun to see how Josh Heupel has taken Mike Leach's air raid offense and kind of tweaked it to his own. And that's what you saw Hendon Hooker using, to beat Alabama this year with Jalen Hyatt going for whatever it was, like 6 catches and 5 touchdowns or something crazy. So, yeah, it was a really entertaining game, and it's always fun to watch football on Thanksgiving. I mean, that's like peanut butter and jelly Thanksgiving and football.
Oh yeah. That'd be great if you got Mike Leach on the podcast. That would he'd give some entertaining quotes. I'm sure he'd have to think of some odd questions to ask him. Well,
Definitely the most entertaining coach in the SEC, 100%.
oh yeah, especially in an interview setting. But like you said, very impressed with Will Rogers. He's thrown the ball 386 times, only 6 interceptions. That's 380 passes that were not interceptions. That's not easy. Um, so yeah, definitely huge talent there at Mississippi State. They are going to miss him once he moves on. Um, and yeah, it's nice. I guess it is nice to see Mike Leach get the win after 2 straight losses there in the Egg Bowl. Um, where do you see these teams go if Lane Kiffin is to leave Ole Miss? How does that affect that program? Would you say?
I think it would affect it a lot. I thought um, having Lane Kiffin, they really separated themselves with recruiting, because Lane Kiffin is a really great recruiter. And I actually thought they were going to land Arch Manning. And that's where I thought, honestly, where he should have went. I felt like that was the perfect fit for him. With Lane Kiffin being an offensive genius, he could really, tweak the offense around to let Arch shine. And Arch is, as we know, his uncle Eli Manning was a star at Ole Miss. His granddad Archie Manning was a star at Ole Miss. So um, he ultimately decided to go to Texas. But yeah, I think if Lane Kiffin left, I think that would be a pretty significant loss to Ole Miss. Obviously, I don't think they would have any problem getting somebody else in there. Um, maybe Dion. I mean, who knows? Maybe if Ole Miss opened up, he would just kind of stay in Mississippi and go to Ole Miss and maybe not have to deal with some influence from the boosters and all that. But like I said, if I had to put money on it and make a bet right now, I would say he's not leaving. It's been pretty entertaining on Twitter. If you've seen, a reporter kind of tweeted out that he was leaving. Obviously, that wasn't the case. That he hasn't said that. So he goes on Twitter and quote tweets it and basically changed the words around to the reporter's name, saying that he was leaving this broadcasting station, going to another one, and all totally trolling the guy. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, I really don't think I don't see it happening. I don't see him leaving.
Yeah, I saw that tweet. That was good. He's pretty great on Twitter. Good follow there. Speaking of which, before we go, where can people follow you and the show on social media?
Yeah, so I have a Instagram and a Twitter for my podcast. Both of them, the handle is Skylar Lara Pod. That's a great way to go on there and follow to keep up to date with everything. New videos and new interviews and things of that nature, as well as just some entertaining sports pictures, that you would see on a ESPN or a Sports Center's Instagram or Twitter. So just trying to, like I said, just trying to keep it going and get it out there and just let people share their story. And yeah.
Well, very good. And I will say right before we go, I actually just got an alert on my phone. Auburn has been in discussion with Hugh Freeze about becoming school's next football coach. So you may just be right about Lane Kiffin passing.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
that was the name that was being brought up for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting. Yeah. Old Ole Miss coach.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Skylar. I hate we're out of time. We got to move on, but I appreciate you coming on. And everybody, please check out the Skylar Lara podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. It's definitely worth checking out. I appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Nick, thank you so much, man. Have a good weekend.
All right, I'll see you. Thank you. You too.